Quiet on set. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Let's Poddy podcast with your host, Benji Weatherly. It's the podcast where you learn absolutely nothing.
All right, here we go. Let's Poddy.
You want to?
Season 2 or 3, I don't know. I don't even know why I even start with that every time. We have one of my oldest, greatest besties ever.
Well, oldest, not like oldest my
No, I
age.
started with that with Rick DeVoe. I said, my oldest friend. And he's like, what? But
youngest, most handsome.
Before I go any further, Chris Cote is our guest today. Chris Cote is a name now that everybody knows. I mean, we just had it's cool to see where your career has gone, because nobody, like in my friend circle, no one's had this career. He started out as a amateur in his hometown of Encinitas, which he'll never leave.
Right.
And he's put so much back into this town. And when I say that, he runs an M.A.S.S magazine that's very thoughtful, and all the businesses he helps out, and he's a journalist. He started, I mean, he didn't start it, but he was editor of TransWorld SURF, when we actually had magazines. And to see him grow as a journalist, media person, and now he's an announcer for the WSL. I see him on, you're going to have to explain all this, but a huge skateboarder. And we just had Jagger Eaton on, and he had a lot to say about how much he respects your point of view and who you are as a commentator. And in the last few years, you can't stop posting clips of you skating, which kind of annoys me a little bit. And then you do the surf clips. So it's like you're kind of living in the past, which is nice. Mm-hmm. And you have this, I guess, route in your life with your career that you kind of keep going in different directions. And I have a ton of respect the fact that you keep reinventing yourself. But for now, right now, I just want to say, what you do in the commentating world and stuff, does that motivate you to keep going with it, or does it get annoying? Because I've tried it, and being a play-by-play person to me is one of the hardest things you can do in media, because you have to fill a lot of void in surfing, especially when the waves are shitty, small, inconsistent and stuff. I think it'd be a lot easier for this, interviewing an interesting person and getting back and forth jabs. I watch you fill air a lot. And tell me a little bit about, the beginnings of living in Encinitas, me and this guy, my family started a thing called STV, and he was one of the...
That was it.
That was the
start
beginning.
Right there.
And STV was Surf Skate Snow TV. When I was a little kid, my parents ran this thing, and he was 16, 17 or something. A baby. You were young. And you and PK had your own desk, and you guys, that was the beginning of him becoming who he is, and my family had a little to do with it. And you really, you actually felt like that was your calling at that moment, and without even knowing, because I watched it and I was like, this is what you should be doing, little buddy. And I can't wait to hear. Let's give everybody the story of Chris Cote's life, because his family is very embedded into this community that I call home now. It started as you, a young kid with an older brother, just like Jagger and me and everyone else. Growing up in Encinitas, you wanted to be a pro surfer, or were you loving skateboarding first? I don't know the young Chris Cote stories. Give it up.
Great intro, by the way. That was awesome. And that's it. I mean,
it's over. Are we done?
Yeah, we're done. I can see my house from here. So I guess, to kind of start it off, I grew up in the early 80s in Encinitas, which, as everybody knows, like wherever they grew up in their hometown, growing up in the early 80s, pretty much anywhere was awesome. BMX bikes, skateboards, boogie boards, not a lot of rules. Most, all ours and our friends' parents, they all worked normal 9-to-5 jobs. So latchkey kids, which no phones, barely TV. MTV was not even on yet. And so, like most kids our age, we were outside and we were screwing around and we were on our bikes and building jumps and building ramps and the whole thing. And so growing up in Encinitas, you were just in it. The cool kids in your neighborhood surfed. In our neighborhood, we had the Ortega brothers, all these guys where you're just going, you'd see them walk by to the beach and go, oh my, that dude's the coolest.
Right.
Somebody would skate by and you're like, that guy's cool.
Right.
And so you grew up with these influences around, and we saw surf magazines. We went to surf videos at La Paloma. So we grew up, we were kind of born into surfing, skating culture. And when we weren't surfing or boogie boarding, being at the beach, we were on our skateboards pretending to be pro surfers. You'd have to call who you were going to be when the session started. I get to be Aki. and then we'd argue who got to be Aki and Curran and stuff. But just that kind of, I guess, youth of never being bored because you always had something to do, and you didn't have video games yet. You didn't have really good TV shows or anything like that. So we were just constantly outside. And I just, surfing was later for me, not till junior high school.
Yeah. So did you start skating first?
I would say I was skating and boogie boarding first and then riding my BMX bike. So all those things kind of first. And then I remember, boogie boarding back then, bodyboarding was kind of even with surfing, just in terms of coolness. Like nobody gave each other crap for doing either one.
I did that
until junior high school.
Right.
And then, like my brother or whoever's like, all right,
let's get you a real board.
Yeah. And I remember we were in Ventura on a family trip. I think it was C Street. And I was riding my bodyboard. My brother Justin was surfing. And I was like, let me try on a wave. And my first wave, I stood up and I did a cutback. And I go, oh, well, that's awesome.
Your first wave, you did a cutback?
First wave,
I'm just kidding. I'm just playing.
Yeah.
First wave, I did an air reverse.
I surfed and stuff, but first kind of turn, I was going, oh my gosh, okay. Whoa. And so, from there, my older brother was sponsored. He was sponsored by Stubbies, local surfboards.
How old is Justin compared to you? 2 years older?
He's 3 years older.
3 years older. Yeah. Same as me.
And so I think, like you said, most people with the older brother, if whatever they did, you want to do, he would listen to heavy metal. I want to listen to heavy metal, all that stuff. And so he started doing contests and he was, contemporaries with Rob Machado and just a bunch of really rad surfers from around here. And so I got the hand-me-down boards. They still had his sponsor stickers on there, and I wasn't taking those off. Oh, no.
What was your board company? Nectar?
We had Agua boards. Agua. We had some Donald Takayama boards.
What was Machado's?
GH boards.
What was
Sarich? Yeah. So we grew up, and it was kind of a lot of the younger kids around our neighborhood were riding these tiny little Donald Takayama twin fins.
Whoa.
Or these Agua boards. We literally were 2 blocks from the Agua factory. And so we would go in there and literally be the kids sweeping up the floor.
Is that by Juanita's down there? That was it.
In the cuts.
I do remember
in Lacadia,
that. Steve Boyson had Glasser over there.
Exactly. And so we were just really in the zone. And we grew up with surf shops around us. So it was kind of inevitable that we were going to do all that stuff. And then, high school, you start doing NSSAs and high school contests. And, as late bloomer, wasn't as good as everybody, but everybody expected me to be because my brother was so good. Mm-hmm. My surf coach would yell at me like, why can't you be more like your brother? And then I think it was kind of senior year and then the first couple of years out of high school, I started kind of figuring it out, doing the U.S. Open and bigger events, got sponsored by Ezekiel and Breaker Out and went to Japan and kind of did like...
No, tell that story, please.
Oh, that one?
Was it Japan one? The one story.
My first big surf.
But didn't you write?
I did, yeah.
This story is so cute, Annie. I've been waiting to ask this because it's so long ago now because we're getting up in our age. But this story, I remember back in the day, it was in the mag, wasn't it?
It was in the big issue of Surf.
Okay, and listen to this story. It's so fucking rad. How old were you in this story?
I was probably 17 or maybe 18. 16, 17, or 18.
You wrote for Ezekiel, I remember.
Yeah, so I started getting these sponsors. I was getting paid a little bit to surf. And, I knew that I wasn't quite at the level of everybody else. Really, I could still do cute tricks and stuff. And so anytime I would get invited on a trip or go to Salt Creek to try to get a photo, I would try to kind of make myself more appealing beyond my skill level.
Right.
You know? And so I remember my first kind of big like international trip. I was with Donovan Frankenreiter, Vince De La Pena, and we were all riding for Ezekiel and breaker out wetsuits. Or Vinny and I were Ezekiel, Donovan was breaker out. And so basically they had made this promo trip in Japan. That was kind of the tail end where, you know, being big in Japan was like the best.
Yeah.
You know, I would get custom made boxes of 20 wetsuits.
Right.
2 short johns, 2 spring suits, 2
and they make the best wetsuits in Japan.
Insanely cool to get these boxes. And, you know, I was living my dream at the time. Sponsored, getting free clothes, stickers on the board. I was like, I'm killing it.
Yeah.
So I got invited on this trip. First real international trip. I didn't really know what to do. I was still living behind my mom. Yeah, so I was like 17. And I remember I kind of just forgot to tell her about it. So I left a note on the fridge and I just said, Mom, I'm going to Japan. Be back in 2 weeks. Love you. So that was on the fridge. And
that was on the fridge. Later, Mom.
Yeah, I remember. I don't know how. All right, so we went on the trip. I entered this contest. It was a breaker out contest. You know, I was sponsored by Breaker Out. I think I was the only like American guy in the event. It was 1 foot, and I was stoked. I was like, oh,
yeah, this is
1 foot. This is me right here. Me. I won the contest. I think I won like $2,500. I got a taste of being, you know, international pro surfer, bikini models and parties and the whole thing. I wasn't drinking or anything, but I was, wow.
Screw all this. Did you call your effing mom when you got to Japan at least?
I didn't know how to do that.
Yeah, the phone situation traveling back in those days, I would write my mom postcards. 3 months later, she'd be like, oh, he's alive.
Yeah.
But I want to know, because I love that story of you telling your mom on a fucking piece of paper on the thing. When did you communicate that you were alive? Like, for real?
I think when you got home? Back, yeah. Or I must have called at some point.
You must have, right? Please.
Yeah, because Donovan and Vinny, they knew how to do it all. So I must have called at some point or something because...
But she didn't. Your mom is so chill.
Yeah, when I got back, she was like, what were you doing in Japan? I'm like, I am rich now.
Oh, cool.
I have $2,500.
Dude, that is a lot of money, though.
Yeah, and so it must have been Vinny or somebody that hooked it up with Surfer Magazine because I had been, you know, writing. I was doing stuff for Wave Action Magazine. I was writing letters to magazines constantly.
Yeah, when did you get into writing? What the hell? Where'd that come from?
In high school, like senior year. I
started
was
writing
so bad at every other class that I'm like, all right, I have to be good at something. And I always wrote in grade school and stuff. So writing kind of came pretty easy. And so
on this podcast, we love supporting quality products and awesome people. That's why we're so stoked to partner with Dark Art Surfboards and their lineup of shapers. Dark Art's boards are faster, stronger, lighter, and ready for wherever you decide to paddle out. And these carbon fiber boards aren't just for high-performance surfers. With shaping collaborations from Tomo, Paizel, JT, T. Patterson, Album, Rusty, DHD, and more, there's a Dark Arts board for everyone. Head to their site, darkartsurf.com, to check out their full lineup of surfboards.
I somehow pitched this story. I was like, my first international trip, I won this contest, I got these photos, me with girls and this note and to the whole thing. And luckily for me, timing-wise, it worked out to where I got a full page in the Surfer Magazine big issue,
right?
Which
is huge.
At the time was like, it was huge for me. I had like arrived, I guess you would say. And so did that for a little while and then kind of back to the STV thing. So I remember Ezekiel sent me to Hawaii. And that was when I realized real quick that I wasn't going to be a pro surfer anymore. First day at Rocky Point. Stickers, you know. I think I had a little short john on. It was like white, blue, brand new board, all these stickers. I paddled out and was like head high. And this guy on a neon board, big hair, he pulls into a little barrel. He's coming at me. I'm paddling over. I'm like, phew. He pulls out of the wave. It was Roadblock. Roadblock,
David on Tie.
Local.
David on Tie is the name of that motherfucker.
So he pulls out and he's right over me. He's like, brah. He's like, what'd you say? And I was like, oh, that was a good barrel. And he's like, you distracted me. He's like, get it, go in. Like, get the fuck out of here, go in. And I was all, okay. And
I was trying to be nice.
Yeah, and I just turn around, I start paddling, and someone else is paddling out. and another huge guy. And he sits up and he's like, brah, if you paddle in, he's like, you better never come back out.
Right.
And so I turned around and Roadblock's still yelling at me. He's like, I'm going to punch your fins out. He's like paddling up. And this guy's going, don't do it. Don't paddle it. And so they start yelling at each other.
Oh, no way.
And luckily a wave came and just kind of I just basically sat up and let the wave smash me.
And did you go in?
I went in and I was sleeping on this dude's floor and it was just horrible. I'm like, I don't want. And then, yeah. So the waves were that first day. I was like, oh, I can do this. The next day I show up and it's 12 foot everywhere, pipeline everywhere. They're like, where are you going to surf? What are you going to do? What? I have a 5'8". And so I was kind of like, all right. And that was, this is the same trip where I was supposed to be there for a month, sleep on this dude's floor. He would come in every night at midnight and practice bass guitar in the room. God. And I didn't drink or anything, so I had no idea. I had no money. And I remember it was Thanksgiving, and I was in front of Cammy's Market. Mm-hmm. Rest in peace, Cammy's Market. Rest in peace. In the little phone booth, and it was raining, and it was Thanksgiving. I had no money. I didn't know anybody. And I'm on the phone calling my mom, crying. Hey, no, it's going good. I'm having a good time.
This is really good.
And I remember, I forget who it was. Somebody walked out the store, oh, hey, Chris. I knew from here. I'm like, hey. And they had all these Thanksgiving, food. I'm like, what are you doing? They're like, oh, there's a big barbecue at the Roxy House. I was like, oh, yeah? And they're like, yeah. All right, see you later. And I was in the phone booth.
Going, you never went to it? You didn't go to the party?
I didn't get invited anywhere. And I got, and I remember I kind of knew Rob Machado, and so I begged him for money to change my ticket to go home early. And I got to the airport, 6 fours in a bag. And I pulled up to the counter and I'm checking in. She goes, okay, that'll be $100 for the bag. And I started crying. I'm like, take it. I don't care. I'm going home. Take it. I don't want it.
You were saying that don't even worry about the boards.
I don't have money. I'm like, I don't have any money.
Did they give you the free?
She was saw that I was in distress. Oh my. Thankfully.
I hate to laugh at this, but it's so endearing. It's your personality in a nutshell.
It was so great because, I got home and I'm like, all right, let me figure this out. Because I could still surf, and I was filming for video, Daredevils. I was in these videos and all this stuff. I was filming with Pete the Rookie. I almost very close to getting in a Taylor Steele movie. I was like, if one person had just one wave taken out, I would have got a wave. But it kind of made me realize, I'm like, okay, well, I can still surf, so I can still be sponsored, but people seemingly like me, so I started working at companies. Billabong.
I didn't know you worked at Billabong.
I worked at Billabong. I worked at Reef. I worked at Arnett.
I remember that.
Hurley. I was in Hurley's first ever advertisement.
No way.
In a little zine. I was naked, covered in tortilla chips.
Nice.
Chips and salsa.
So they used you for your rig.
Yes. So that was Hurley's first ad ever. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just worked in the surf industry and, kind of made a pretty seamless transition from kind of B grade pro surfer to marketing, team manager, whatever. Learned a bunch of stuff with Rick DeVoe, mm-hmm. With Paul Gomez, with Bob Hurley, with Kip Arnett, all mm-hmm. the kind of guys that formed the surf industry at the time. And so it was a pretty rad school to go to because I only went to college for a semester and a half.
Oh, I didn't.
Community college, excuse me.
Yeah, but still.
It's called academic probation.
You're probably the only person we've interviewed that went to college for 3-4 hours.
Yeah, I was there for a class and a half. It was awesome.
So what age are you when you started doing media? Was your first real media job, was that you said you worked at Surf?
I delivered magazines for Wave Action, and they let me do video reviews and music reviews. Then, I did a couple things for Surfer Magazine, Surfing Magazine. In 1999, myself, Blair Marlin got called in to be kind of I guess the pilots for the pilot episode of TransWorld Surf. We were in this group in a round table. Steve Zeldin, Tim Risley, who I work with now, Preston Murray. This is
before checking.
Sean Hayes was the first editor, Purple.
Wow.
And Aaron Schmidt. we just had this like rad little crew, and we basically helped form what TransWorld was going to be. At the time, I was kind of like, I was working for Blink as a roadie. Mm-hmm. I was working at Hanson's. I was the worst surf shop employee ever. So I must have been 22 or something, because I was definitely partying. I
remember this time. Remember Disney World with Blink? Remember?
Oh, yeah.
We went on a trip on the tour with Blink, and he was on their tour as the roadie. And roadie meaning like you were a guitar tuner.
Drum tech.
Yeah. Which you knew nothing about.
I didn't know anything about it. I knew I kind of knew how to play drums. I started off I was the drum tech, because basically Rick DeVoe, wherever he worked, he'd be like, I need Chris to work with me. Like you always bring me along. And so it was when Blink kind of was first starting to go, the drummer was Scott Rayner, and they went from a normal,
playing in my backyard
band to, okay, now they're like getting, and so then you start getting a crew, a roadie, a drum tech, a guitar tech, a manager, and all that. And so I just kind of got named as the drum tech. So I did it with Scott for a couple years, and then I was there when they were scouting Travis. We all went to the show, or they played. Blink opened for Aquabats, and it was kind of known what was about to happen. Like it was a little.
Wait, remember I was living with Tom when Scott jumped off the roof at Coronado Del, broke both his ankles,
stuff like
that. And his
girlfriend
called the house when we used to have phones in houses. And she called, phones. And me and Tom DeLong lived together. And his girlfriend, he was like, fuck, he was young, man. He was like 18 or 19.
We were 20.
But we were, when I lived with Tom, we had our 21st birthday together when we lived together. So we were 19, 20, and 21.
Yeah.
And Scott was younger. He was like 17, 18. And he jumped out of the Dell and landed on both his ankles and blew him out. And they were already he was really fighting the alcohol and everything. And I remember... I'm glad to hear your side of this, because I was living it through being a pro surfer, not really caring that my friend was going to be one of the biggest people in the world in music, because I was like, you're never going to make it. And when he broke his ankles, and they're like, oh, we got this other guy though from Aquabats and this and that, and it ended up he was so good. My heart hurts thinking about. It's like the Beatles story, where it's like you have this
Blink's
guy.
Not the Beatles.
I'm not saying Blink's the Beatles, but right now they're charging $250 for a shitty ticket. Like, where are we at? I mean, the Beatles would never.
They're taking over South America again.
But then the cool part about this story is I'm in Brazil trying to be a pro surfer and trying to make heats, sucking. And I go, I'm going to come fucking meet my buddies that are now rock stars with a bus and everything
roadies.
in Orlando, Hard Rock or something. And I get there in the morning, and you guys are all asleep in buses, because that's what you do. You drive to each town in these buses, so you sleep and you wake up and you're like, oh shit, where are we? Detroit. And I remember I got there, and me and you, I'm like, Cote, you're here? And you're like, dude, I'm the roadie.
I work here, bro.
And you're the same age. So we're all like 22, like you said, 22, I think we were. And I'm like, dude, when they were playing to giant not stadiums, but like 20,000 people. It was
arenas,
arenas. And I remember it was a day off, and we're like, let's go to Disneyland. And we went to some store. Disney World, excuse me.
Yeah.
And remember you dressed up in leg warmers, Miami, Kentucky.
Well, that was the thing. It's like, I was the drum tech, and that was.
But you were the best friend of the boys.
I was serious about that, but I was also the mascot.
Yeah.
It was like, because it was interesting, because the Blink guys, there was a certain kind of like naivete and an innocence to them. And, like we come, I had like discovered, booze and all that stuff. And I was like, I was hanging out, when we'd be on tour, I'd be with like Fletcher from Pennywise, and they're like, dude, you're hanging out with Fletcher? I'm like, yeah, that's my guy. I'm dark. You guys are light, And so I was kind of the mascot, and I was down for anything. I would do anything. And we were all getting all kinds of antics, but they had girlfriends and stuff. And so they would like pay me to do gross stuff or weird stuff or sexual stuff. So I guess I was a prostitute.
Yeah.
and a roadie.
They call it hazing.
I was just like down for whatever.
I remember you'd come on stage to like help with a stick or whatever, the drumsticks, and they would like kick you and run after you, and like it was like you were with the mascot of the humor.
I was constantly naked, and like
it was so fun.
Yeah, it was so fun, and it was cool because, and it's kind of like what I'm doing now, because back then I got to live in so many different worlds.
Yeah,
I was a roadie and I was on tour, and I was like my own world, and I would come back and I would go back into the surf world, and then kind of be able to kind of mesh them all together and make it work. But then, like Travis got in the band, they got bigger and bigger. And by the time Travis was in a cage spinning around upside down, it was pretty obvious like that I was in over my head. And so I was like, okay,
I can't really help you if you're up there.
I don't even know how to tune these drums. Like that was the drum tech's main job, is to tune the drums every show.
Yeah.
And I never learned how to do it. I would go up there and I would try my best, and Travis would sit down and look at me and be like,
right on, bro.
You think they're good? And I was like, they're good this time. And he'd hit him, and he would, like Travis makes his face like, every time he hit him, make the face. And
that would be the hardest job to be Travis Parker's fucking drum tech, dude.
Yeah.
You're 22.
Well, I remember the first, because I'd set up a million drum sets, but I remember the first show, it was kind of like, okay, like Travis is in Blink now. It's a big deal. And by being in Blink, now you get this drum tech. Mm-hmm. And he was stoked. I have a drum. I don't have to set. He didn't have to set his drums up anymore. And he's like, my drums are right over there. I go, awesome, boss. Like, got you. And I go over there, and they were in these cases, these rolling cases, which I had never seen. And I opened it up, and I was like, "Oh God!" It was very
put
complex.
It together.
Yeah, very complicated. I just remember I looked over this like a real roadie. I'm like, "Bro,
help
you
me
have to help me. I have no idea what's going on."
Oh my God!
And so I learned how to do it. But yeah, I did that for a couple years, and then kind of floated around, did all kinds of weird, odd jobs trying to figure it out. And then I think I remember getting an ultimatum from my girlfriend at the time, like. I didn't have a car. I had a BMX bike. That was my mode of transport. And I was content.
She wasn't.
I had a BMX bike, and I was like living behind my mom. I'm like, I'm good. This is perfect.
As good as it gets.
And then I just remember going like, okay, I got the ultimatum, and I go, all right. I literally physically threw the bong off the cliff, much to the chagrin of all my friends who were like, what?
Why would you?
That was ours.
Yeah.
And I got a car, and then it all kind of happened really at good timing. 1999, got the call. They're starting TransWorld SURF, and I was obviously very hyped because I was working with Blair Marlin and that whole crew, and they literally were like, Mahaley, like the whole group, amazing group of people. They were like, do whatever you want. They would look to us like there was like Sean is the editor, and so there was real surf stuff in there, but all the kind of like extra stuff came to me, and it was like, all right, well, we need to do a review on sandals. And I was like, oh, burn them. Light them on fire.
Dude, I
burn these boards.
I love you talking about this because that's what I remember about TransWorld. It was so off the fucking page.
We're like, airs only. We don't care. Like, power turn.
It was ahead of its fucking time, though, man.
Yeah.
That's what it's so fun to reminisce about this because that was 2000 when you
99 into 2000, and then it went all the way to 2013. It seems like a short span, but like there was a lot happening. Monthly magazines were huge.
I remember going into your guys' editing meetings, and it was you and the crew, all the guys that you're saying, Zeldo and everybody, and I was like, Cote, you don't belong in here, dude. This is like way over your head.
Yeah.
And then the more it went on, longer it went on, and then all of a sudden Zelda's gone, and then you became the editor-in-chief, which is the biggest job you can have in the publication.
It was a steady climb.
It was a steady climb, but when they did become the editor-in-chief, the magazine took on a different life, and that's why I loved it. That was why we worked together on so many projects and made TransWorld cooler than Surfer and Surfing, and a respect to Surfer and Surfing because they were the beginning.
Fun,
but
friendly
it was
battle.
for us young guys at the time.
Yeah.
Like it's like if now some kid started something like Jagger Eaton started something, it would be cooler than what's happening in his industry because he's the heart and soul of this youthful movement. And the coolest part about me and you being the same age and you being the editor and I'm a pro surfer you would ask me to do something, and I was like, "Fuck yeah, I'm going to do it." I'm like, "That's the magazine for me." I was the front runner because the very first T-shirt they made with TransWorld, I carried Kelly Slater up the beach on the very first chair up.
It was a spread,
and it was a spread. And Zeldo called me in, and he goes, "Bro, I can't thank you enough." He goes, "We're trying to get our name out there," and I had the first TransWorld shirt on, and I'm holding Kelly like coming out the beach.
And do you remember what Surfer Magazine did with that photo?
No, I don't know anything about it. What happened? Did they hate on it?
They photoshopped our logo off. Remember?
Really? I don't remember that.
So I thought like
that was there.
Famous photo.
So they did. I thought
one of the magazines did. Well, I don't know if it was Surfer or Surfing, but it's so Surfer and Surfing had this amazing rivalry. They would like wipe their ass on donuts and like send it to each other. They did gnarly shit to each other. And it was like the editorial guys were all friends, but the sales guys were ruthless. And I mean, they just battled because it was like everyone's trying to get the same money from the same companies.
Yep.
And when we came along, we were
stepchild, motherfucker.
We were like, we don't want your advertising. Like, we want DC shoes. We want Loud Records. We want, we were getting all like the like skate company. We were way more progressive.
Action sports.
It was just we were just like irreverent, and we were, like we did not care. We wanted to be more like Big Brother than any of the other magazines. So it caught on really quick. But I mean, talk about the best job ever. It's like I would go to work, and the first part of TransWorld, I didn't have a car. And so Aaron Schmidt, God rest his soul, best dude ever, would pick me up and drive me to work every single day. And we'd go to work, and we get there about 8 or 9. We maybe surf before work, 8 or 9. And this is my first time like working in an office. Besides working in the surf industry, which was mostly out in the field, I had my own cubicle. I had my own mailbox. And we'd go and we'd drink coffee for an hour. And then we'd maybe play some ping pong, have a quick meeting, and then go to lunch for 2 hours. Skate across the street. We had our own skate park. And then maybe work for another hour, and then it'd be like 3, and we're like, well, let's get some beers and figure out what's in the next issue. And so it was like every day was just adult Disneyland. And we had copy machines and just anything we wanted. And we had a magazine, and so it was like, the magazines would grow so fast, and there's so many pages to be added. The sales guy would come back and go, "We just sold 3 spreads to Billabong, so that means we need to do 3 more spreads of editorial."
Right.
And so that was the best part, because it would just be like everyone would look around and go, "Let's do a photo gallery where Cool Keith, the rapper, writes the captions." And so a lot of the times it was just stuff that we wanted to do. Like, I want to meet Cool Keith. How do I do this?
Right.
Get into concerts, the whole deal. Just use this magazine to do whatever we wanted to do.
Sick.
And then we were close friends with all the surfers that we covered anyway. And so we would like all work together. And like Blair's setting up these amazing trips. And like the other magazines were going, how the hell did you get Bruce, Andy,
that's why I think our crew, Bruce, Andy, me, our age group at that moment, we related to TransWorld in a different way. Like Surfer Magazine would ask you to do an interview, and it was always Ben Marcus or someone, and they would interview you to be like, "Oh, that didn't feel like my generation at all."
Well, it was like we basically. We were just like, it's your magazine.
I mean, you let me do a fucking Camaro with a mullet on a BMX bike photo shoot. Steve Sherman would shoot. The one photo shoot that is funny to talk to you, because I don't even remember doing it because I was so caught up in my own ego and bullshit at the time. It was who's the guy, the photographer at the time that was helping you edit? Pete
Terrace.
Yes. And he comes in, I come in, they're like, "Hey, it's your profile issue. We're going to do this photo shoot. Bring a suit." And I'm like, "A suit?" And I was really into suits at the time.
Oh,
yeah. And
suits
I go, "Why would I bring a suit?" And they're like, "Just bring a suit." And I had a dope suit. And I bring it in, and I'm like, "What are we doing?" And he had a magazine of Jude Law. I think it was Jude Law, the actor. I hope it's right. And like Details or something. One of those fashion magazines. And he's in a suit jumping in all these different poses.
Oh,
I remember going, "You want me to wear a suit and a surf mag and jump in the air, different poses?" And he's like, yeah. And I was a ham bone. I still am a ham bone. Are you kidding?
I'll do it.
I'll go, fuck. Not only am I going to do it, but I'm going to do it better than Jude Law. Like in my mind, I was never that way about surfing. I could care less if I was the best surfer, but I was like, this is my calling. And that photo shoot still, I don't know what it looks like because I haven't seen it.
I have every issue in my
I would
office.
love to see that again, but it was so fucking rad and it was cool. And the best thing about it, shout out to Chris Ward. I can't wait to get him on the podcast. But then another man, I think surfing, he wore a suit and tried to.
You're like, oh.
No, but it was so like, ooh, not as cool.
Didn't work.
That didn't work.
We put a lot of
creativity,
thought, creativity, effort, and empowered the surfers, empowered the photographers. Like if Sherman, Pete Terrace, or any of the photographers, Aaron Checkwood, if anybody had an idea, Mark Hostetter had a million amazing ideas of like painting Jay Larson silver.
Yeah.
Let's make Jay Larson the Silver Surfer. He painted him silver, took him to blacks, and he was like doing all this weird stuff. And I remember like we loved making surfers feel a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
like
it always turned out, it always turned out so just
impactful
cool looking and dynamic and different and weird. And, we definitely changed the surf media landscape, definitely the surf industry with how we were doing things, and it, just pissing people off. And again, it was Big Brother. It was being that close to TransWorld skateboarding. Like I was over at TransWorld Skate so much. I'm like, oh, just please accept me, let me hang out here. And so that all those influences at the same time, and also we wanted to crush the other magazines. We wanted better trips. We wanted better photos. We wanted to get this, get that cover out first. Like, we got everybody got the same Bruce shot.
Right.
We got to get that first.
Right.
And then, our partnership with Taylor Steele was obviously huge. That allowed us to be on all the Taylor Steele trips. And then with Greg Browning, all the drive-through trips.
I got that thing from TransWorld's lobby still. My cover where I signed it for TransWorld.
Oh, yeah.
And it, I have it somewhere in storage or whatever.
I was having this conversation.
I think you gave it to me, right?
Yes.
And I got the pony up neon sign in the garage. I'm going to put it up at the bar.
So Benji Weatherly is very underrated as a surfer because he's so funny and entertaining, and that sometimes overshadows how good a surfer he actually was and still is. Probably. When did you surf it?
I got to go to Surf Ranch on Monday and Tuesday to film the drive-through reunion with Rob and everybody.
Perfect.
That's going to go over well.
Sick invite. Benji, I was just talking to my friend BJ in the parking lot at Seaside today, and also when you called into the podcast, I don't know if you listened to the podcast after you hung up. Somebody asked a question like your favorite.
Is it live? Is your podcast live?
We do it. Yeah, we do it live and recorded.
You gotta show us how to do that. We should do a live one sometime.
Oh, it's terrifying. Because
let's give a shout out to your podcast real quick too. If you don't know, now you know.
That's later.
Monday M.A.S.S is Todd Richards and Chris Cote's podcast.
It's Chris Cote and Todd Richards.
I'm sorry. And it's been going on 5
years.
Is it? Is it 10?
Hundreds of episodes.
No. But for real, how many years has it been? It's been a while.
It's been a lot of years.
But you don't know. It's like, it's got to be. Yeah. So they've been doing it for years. If you have time, put on your podcast.
Oh, is this an ad break?
Real. Yeah,
Monday M.A.S S, the world's greatest action sports podcast. An action sports podcast about nothing.
It's about Chris Cote and a snowboarder. That's the title.
It's Todd talking about poop, and I'm talking about positivity. It's the only weekly action sports show.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's not easy doing it weekly.
If you like this, you're really going to like that. I'm not trying to take your listeners, but I mean,
you can touch them.
This comes out once every 6 months.
No, but
we can coexist.
But do you enjoy?
I was complimenting Benji Weatherly's surfing.
Yeah, I don't want to hear
Sorry,
that
let's
shit.
get back to that.
I hate
Benji has one of the best backside airs in the history of surfing. I feel comfortable saying that. I've seen a lot of airs. I'm an air aficionado. I love them. You got an air cover for TransWorld, and probably I'd say 2 or 3 of your sections in Taylor Steele's movies. Post Momentum 2, you were like big wave guy, turns, and then
I hated all my parts.
Hit and run, loose change. There was a couple in a row where you had banger sections, and you had layback, barrels, no grab laybacks where you lay back and you put your hand like that were insane, underrated. And then your backside airs were light years beyond so many people because you did it like a skater, snowboarder, proper grab. And I feel like the fact that your personality and you've become known for drive-through and all this stuff, which is awesome. But I think you're underrated in the annals of surf history for how good you were at airs, and your backside snaps were insane. And I think the same thing of Donovan Frankenreiter. You watch Donovan's old sections. He's so good, and his sections are so good and well-rounded. But you guys, you have these big personalities. You have other surfers who maybe aren't as funny or entertaining or interesting, and people go, "Those guys are really good."
Ah, man.
But you guys were really good.
We'll have to edit all that out.
Yeah.
Enough with the butter.
You know what? Take that out.
No. But
delete that.
The coolest thing is we did that Momentum reunion with Kelly and Machado, Tim Curran, and Kalani when we did at the La Paloma for Salento Festival.
Yes.
Were you there for that night?
Was I there?
I don't know, but we did.
I think I was out of
They
town.
did video parts of me, Kelly, Timmy, and whatever. And
People came up to you after like, dude,
you
I
actually
didn't know."
surf? No, and it's the best feeling in the world when Kelly, he goes, this is so funny. He gives you compliments, but a little jab, always.
Little side swipe.
Yeah, and we were looking up at the big screen because we were kind of awkward to see our parts.
You're on stage.
Looking at the screen, and I do that backside air you're talking about. That was the cover. And he goes, that was one of the biggest airs ever. And he goes, it was more like distance than it was height. And he said it because it's hard for him to say anything nice. And I mean that with all due respect.
It was long.
He goes, dude, that was one of the biggest errors. He's like, and he was like giving me props for once. And he goes, but it was the distance, right? It was the distance. And I go, no, it's the height, bitch. Like, no, I'm just kidding.
You did him different. You did him different than other people.
It was just, what was cool? It was a campaign. I can't believe I'm talking about myself. In campaign,
Go on.
Campaign, when I made that part, I made one on Sumbawa with Ross Williams, and I can't remember who was on our trip, but I made this one. And at that time, when you do a backside air and you grab it for a second or not grab, and it was the landing, you were like, I'm going to break my legs. Like, always on a backside air, you have to commit, stay above it, and then you just got to hope that the wave doesn't break right where you land. So it's, that was your fear. Nowadays, the kids don't fear it because they realize you can do those things. But I remember at the time I made one of this, Aki's Left. It was called Aki's Left. And I made my first one. And when we were watching the footage back on the boat, Ross said maybe a little comment like, wow, that was kind of nuts. And I went, I think I just figured that out. I finally, on top of the wave when I was in the air, I realized, because when you do airs, our generation, the board would get above you and it was over. You're like, wee!
Well, yeah, a lot of people did, and the board would be like, stay up.
Bye-bye.
And then you land.
And now kids, they do rotations, so the board would do what I'm trying to say is when you get in the air, the board has to be below you, right? So you have to be like, boom, like what every skateboarder knows. But in surfing, we didn't know that you had to do it a certain way. We thought hitting the lip would get you in the air. It has nothing to do with that. You just need the transition and have your board, your body above the board.
Well, I think you were in the skate world a lot.
Yeah.
Not that you were doing big backside, like, because you did your backside airs like a skater would do it on a vert ramp.
Yeah.
You land in transition, and that's, I think, what differentiated them. And also, like we were saying, a lot of times guys were doing airs and they were like that, and the board was flat. But your board, you were doing proper method airs.
It's
pretty, landing
pretty
in the
fun.
Transition.
Yeah, and then Josh Kerr said, "Hold my beer," like a few years later.
And then everybody,
and then everyone does it. Dane Reynolds, that was fun.
No, but still, I mean, still to this day, those airs you were doing, they hold up.
Okay, well, let's get out of
a good old straight air is going to be a beautiful backside method air like you did is going to be cooler looking than any rotation.
That's so funny you say that because I feel that way, but the kids never do them, and I'm like, dude,
it's harder.
Another
too.
moment.
I think it's harder too.
It's harder. In my one moment, I did it in Tabaroo when Andy just got sponsored at Billabong, and I did one. I barely served. It was Shane Dorian's movie Blueprint, and I did one, and I just did it in the transition. I was getting really good at Tabaroo outside Collaborate, and I did one and landed super smooth. And Andy said to me, he goes, "Dude, that was so," and he gave me this really nice compliment about it, and I'm like, I couldn't believe that he thought that was cool because it felt so easy. At that point, I was getting them really easy.
Yeah.
And it was all these things in my surf career. Tom Curran in the Momentum One movie where I did a carve in Barbados told me.
Grab rail carve.
Yeah, he told Pete Rocky when they watched the first time, that's when he was lore. And he said, he made 3 comments. It was a switch stance Kelly Barrow where it was kind of weird and he comes out of it. And then my carve and one other thing. And Petey's like, dude, when you did the carve, he goes, whoa, or something. And that was amazing. It for me. I was like, I made it. I was 17. I was like,
you never got any contest trophies, but you got complimented from Tom.
From Tom motherfucking Curran. And then he wrote Pickled, the movie, basically on our Surfer Magazine trip. He keeps saying Pickled and da-da-da-da. That's how we came up with his Tom Curran's writing. But enough about my surf career. I want to go back to Chris Cote.
Okay, yeah,
that's what's so dope. Cote has been
about Benji. Let's bring it back to me. I'm here.
He's
I'm
been
on your podcast,
taking stories about athletes and putting them out there for the masses. So I love talking about your life because you never hear about what you're about, and it's a fucking rad story.
I tell everybody
I know. But the rad story about your career, like I said in the beginning, is you find a new path always, and it's now. You're really big in skate. To be honest, when I see you commentating with these guys and holding your own, as coming from a surf, I know you're a skater and you skate every fucking day. But the fact that you can kind of go from skate to surf, no one else does that. Nobody. No one can commentate a WSL a surf contest and go to a fucking Dew Tour or I don't even know the names of all the events you go to and commentate another sport. I mean, other than Salema, nobody does that, and you're an actual athlete, so it's really cool.
Yeah, there's a few. There's only a handful.
Yeah,
I think that do all
that's
3.
It. You do snow too? No,
I do snowboarding. I was at Dew Tour. I was doing snowboarding and skiing. Men's and women's park pipe. Yeah.
Well, tell us this. Tell us this. Can you tell us what your next year is like as far as you're still doing WSLs? You just got back from ISA
Puerto
championships.
Rico, Dew Tour. Yeah. I mean, so basically, like, kind of long story short. So TransWorld and we kind of reached a place where it was for me. It was, like we were sponsoring the U.S. Open. We were working with Fuel TV, and so that gave me opportunity to be a commentator. Like through TransWorld, I got to work at the U.S. Open as a commentator. Mm-hmm. So that was my first kind of like big break there. Then Fuel TV was raging. I became the like backup host for Pat Parnell for Daily Habit. If he couldn't make it or whatever, I would host that. And so I was like, okay. And then
for people out there, that was our Tonight Show.
Television.
That was like Jay Leno show for action
like
sports.
STV, but Fuel
Daily
TV.
Show. I remember that. Daily Habit.
And so I started getting more and more opportunities to do that kind of stuff. I had Cote's Cube. It was kind of the first like
podcast, basically
vlog podcast on our, and it was basically everyone, guys were coming in and we go, oh man, Jamie O'Brien's here. I wish.
And you were doing it
get
live.
A photo of him.
We're at the U.S. Open. You were doing the Cube live.
Yeah, I ended up doing it live. So it became, we got digital cameras early on. We got video cameras and stuff. So anytime a pro would come in, we go, here, sit on the couch for 5 minutes and we do an interview. And then it became like, hey, I got this movie coming out. Can I come in and be on Cote's Cube? So it became a thing. And it kind of I got so busy doing all these different things that I made myself editor at large. Basically meaning I went to work a couple times a week, looked at the magazines, helped with what I could. But the crew was so solid and they were killing it anyway. They didn't need me. And so that kind of snowballed into now I can do commentary for WSL. I can do Fuel TV, and I just kept trying to get better and better. And since I did skate and since I could understand snowboarding and all these other sports, people felt comfortable putting me in that role in those other sports, basically surfing, skating, snowboarding. And then, Vans Park Series came along. It was huge for me. That was probably the first time where, I had done Dew Tour skate and a couple of things, but Vans Park Series, I was their play-by-play guy. And so I went around the world.
Was that nerve-wracking?
At first, because, and it's like, I feel like it's kind of the audiences are the same. The coolest of the cool guys that you're worried about when you're announcing a skate event or a surf event or a snow, like they're not watching it because they're too cool. They're doing their own thing.
That's such a good point. I never thought of that.
It's like, Dylan Reeder's not watching Vans Park Series, so it's like, why am I worried that somebody's going to think, whoever it is.
That's good.
Like, you're doing it for a different audience, and you kind of have to be, you can't be too cool. You have to be a little bit kooky because you have to relate to people that don't know everything about the sport. But you also have to engage with the core audience. So you have to be entertaining for the coolest kids, and then you have to also be welcoming to people that are like, oh, what's this? You know, this is a skate park event.
Did you ever get scared you weren't going to know the name of a trick? Because there's tricks, there's so many different names.
Well,
variable, fakie, there's so many levels.
It's a little known secret.
Okay.
That in the play-by-play role for a lot of these sports, you don't technically have to know all the names because you're going to always be paired with the color analyst.
Oh, okay.
The expert analyst.
Right.
Neil,
like Chris Miller or whatever.
It's going to be a pro or former pro.
Oh, that makes sense.
And it's a little different for skate and snow. Like in snow, the last couple of things I've done in snow is sideline, where I'm the guy after the run. That was awesome. You really did it.
That's the easy one.
That's a different one. That's the easy one. You've done that before.
Yeah, that's the one that comes natural.
Yeah.
I'm terrified of play-by-play.
But play-by-play...
Say cuss words the whole time.
So, in skate events, I mean, they go so fast. And it's like, if you didn't have that expert, it would be gnarly. But the fact is, like, I'm sitting next to Neil Hendricks. I'm sitting next to Todd Richards. I'm sitting next to Alex White, whoever. Yeah. And I'm like, all right, here goes Jagger Eaton. He needs a 79 if he wants to make it to the finals. We only take the top 8. He's got 45 seconds, and here we go.
And then it goes.
And they go, front side air, kick flipping. I mean, I feel comfortable. I know most of the tricks, especially in park skating. Street skating is gnarly. Half pipe snowboarding is gnarly. Like that, I'm blown away every time.
Yeah.
But you can still do it because you're with the expert.
Right. I didn't even think of it that way.
But I didn't realize that it was. I was just stoked to have any opportunity. I just said yes to everything. I'm like, I wanted to work hard. I want to do it all. And I was so like privileged and honored when, Vans would call me to do those events, or Do Tour would call me to do skate. I go, oh my gosh, thank you. It was really, because I loved it all. I love it all. And so it was, I still am very proud of that, there really is only a handful of us that can do all three, that are respected in all three, and that can hold our own in all three.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty awesome because I'm
found
still
your place.
Able to do it. And I feel like that's kind of like, okay, the commentary is one big element of my job. Right. And it's rad because it's like hard work. You travel a lot. You're away from your family and all of that. But at the same time, it's like you're talking about skating, you're talking about surfing. You get to go to Puerto Rico, Paris, all over the world to do these things. So it's the best job, and there's no pressure. Like you show up and it's 20 foot and you're like, good luck, dude. Here we go. Put on a show. I'm going to talk about it. You do it.
Yeah. I love it, man. You found your place in our lucky lives, if you will.
True.
And I it's cool because you've, in the last 10 years, stopped drinking. You became one of the best fathers in my circle of friends. You've gone through a bunch of ups and downs like any other human being, and done it with grace, and you're living your best life, and your kids are seeing it.
I am.
And I respect the fact that you've always been Chris Cote. You never got big in your own head and stuff. And
like
you really do find a lot of peace with skating, for sure. I see that, but music, and you are a part of there's so many levels to Chris Cote that people probably see on Instagram and all that stuff, but
I make it pretty obvious.
Yeah, he makes it pretty obvious. He does, like Eaton said, he's not really into Jagger's. Like, I don't do social media. Chris does social media.
Oh yeah, check me out. Well, there's like you said, so there's levels, right? For me, social media has a couple different. I use it in a couple different ways. One of them is purely for relevance, like keep hiring me to announce your surf event, your skate event, your snow event, because I do all these things. I love these things and I know about them. I study. I know what's on the cutting edge of all these sports. I know what's happening. That's one part of social media. And then the other part, it truly is inspirational. You drop my kids off at school when they were in grade school, and the other dads would be like, oh, dude, I saw you skate. I used to skate. And I'm like, still there. Like, you can still do it.
Yeah.
I used to play music. I'm like, well,
still there.
Guitars still exist, and there's amps, and you turn them up. And so in my own way, it is kind of, I'm trying to propagate the idea that, I don't feel old. I don't consider myself old, but I'm 47 and I'm still skating. I'm still surfing. I'm playing music. I'm playing shows on like to no one on a Tuesday night at some dive bar. Yeah. I'm doing it all because I love it and I wouldn't ever stop, but I'm showing it because I want people to start skating again if they quit or keep surfing or, like.
It is a rad message.
It's an inspirational thing in a way. Mm-hmm. And I still somehow like people still give me stuff to put on my Instagram. Like, here's a surfboard, put on your Instagram. And I'm like, okay.
No,
really?
It shows that you are consistent in your life's mission. And that's I think at the end of this whole interview, I've known you since we were little kids, and to see your whole story, it's only gotten better. And a lot of stories go sideways, and there's so many things that could have went south for you or like anybody in their story of life. But your story just gets better and better. Your health, you look better, you skate more, you surf more, you're better dad, better everything. And that lesson is for everyone out there is when he stopped being a pro surfer for the time that he got that opportunity, he used that to get to the next step and then the next step and the next step. And you've been going and changing your life's work in front of me my whole life. And I've been, a couple different things. I've tried to do what you do. I own podcasts. I tried to do stand up. I tried to do I had a production company. Podcasts. I do those things and it inspires me to see one of my good friends doing the same thing and then doing it in a way where you guys write music and have your own band. And then like the pinnacle would be Andy Iron's best surf part he's ever had, maybe the best surf part of all time, to your guys' music. And that's one of those like where a Blink made a song named after me for my surf part, Mutt. And it was like, that thing will be in part of my soul for life.
Oh, for sure.
And what's the name of the song that I love?
Cut You Up, Make It Out Alive.
Make It Out Alive.
I
Campaign 1.
Specifically remember Bruce and Andy arguing over that.
Oh, no way.
They both wanted it.
And those are the two coolest surfers on the planet at that moment. And they're fighting over his
we're
band.
Like all homies,
that's dope.
And I'm going like, well,
did you choose who did it?
I don't really.
It worked out perfect.
Who knows? Maybe I signed a contract one night at like 2 a.m. I don't even know. But it was when it happened, we were obviously really stoked. We're like, oh, first of all, we're in a Taylor Steele movie.
And he was a world champ.
One of the reasons we even started playing music in the first place, because we heard music in Taylor's movies and we're like, oh, well, we can play this kind of music. Like, I don't have to take lessons to play this. Like, what is this? And so, when that like happened, and our band, we got to go on tour with Blink and Riding in Vans as Boys. So we were like doing things, and we knew the songs were good. But I remember being at the premiere, and it's on screen, and like Andy was so hyped on the song, and it was very well received at the time, but it wasn't until 5-10 years later where people are going like, and to this day, it comes up like once a year or whatever, like it comes out and it comes back around and people go, dude, that's your band. I love that song.
I love that song.
Yeah. And it's it's a dream. Little life hammers, right? That you kind of have and like, well, I'm going to keep that in like the A file.
Well, that's definitely one that's going to, just like you said, 5-10 years. How about 30 years? It's still going to be the best.
What date is it?
It's the best Andy Irons surf part of all time at his peak. To your little band from Encinitas of Brendan Rausch, Brendan Parkhurst, and it was
Micah
and Micah.
Yeah.
And it's his best friends it's their crew. They grew up their whole lives. And they end up playing at my fucking house a few times and being around Blink and all this stuff. There's a whole nother story about vans riding in boys riding in vans. That's insane. We could talk about that too. But just what a cool moment in time that you, just like you said, gets better with time. That's why I loved surf parts and putting something down on one of your favorite bands in your surf part that you really love. Like Campaign 1 and 2 are my best parts in my mind for sure. And I can, when I'm 70 years old, I can show my grandkids and be like,
Mutt was one of the songs. What was the other song?
For Blink?
You had two.
I had a bunch of Blink songs. Remember the one they had at Blink?
What was it called?
It was the drum one.
Yeah.
I don't remember the name of that song, but that one was really good. The Faint was one of my favorite.
Dumpweed?
I think so. It was the drums, but what's the other one? Faint.
The Faint? You had a Faint song?
Bleeding or something like that.
Yeah, well, that was when Matt Buchanan was making.
Matt Buchanan made that part.
Yeah, I remember when we were listening, and I did a lot of work with Taylor and Matt. They obviously, I mean, those guys were brilliant. They could pick all their own songs, but I was always kind of
you were a big part of the
guy,
music.
and I'd be like, oh, look at this song. And
You helped me with my movie.
That's right.
Life as a Movie.
That's
I remember
right.
going, hey, Cote, will you help me? And we had Tommy Guerrero. Remember, I wanted all the skaters, snowboarders and stuff, and you gave me all of the
That was a good movie.
You freaking gave a lot to the surf industry throughout so many different levels, like the music, the freaking editing, and the freaking media, interviews, commentating. You've been a part of a lot of our luckily our own culture and what we do.
Did you write a book? So you had a movie made, but was the movie was kind of like your friends surfing or snowboarding and
surfing,
surfing.
skateboarding.
It wasn't like
doing their
the
own sports.
story of your life.
No, it was Life as a Movie because I wanted people to realize that Tony Hawk's surfing looks like them surfing.
And that was before kids on TikTok would say like, "Oh my God, last night was a movie.
Oh no,
tonight's gonna be a movie."
I know
dude.
it sounds very arrogant to say life as a movie, but the reason
It
why
worked.
the reason why we did it is because everybody in my life at that time, we'd go do something like, fuck, this life is like a movie, dude. So I just use that. But
Yeah.
listening to it now as an older person, I'm like, oh, that's douchey. But it really was, and it just keeps getting more of a movie. And I mean the dark sides as much as the light
Are
side.
you gonna write a book about your
It's
own
gonna
life?
be called "Don't Call Your Movie Life as a Movie" and look like a douche.
When does the Benji autobiography come out?
No, but let's finish this podcast with one rad fucking project that you did that the people out there are gonna hopefully on YouTube. Nothing that we did back in the day is on YouTube, which bugs the shit out of me.
Well, thankfully too.
Riding in Vans with Boys is made of his band we just talked about. Blink 182 was the biggest band at that moment in Green Day, and it was their big punk tour, and they were the headliners. And these guys got invited to do the little stage out front for how many 30 concerts?
Yeah, the concept of it was these bands kind of know but don't really know, but there's a upstart band following them around, and it was
In a van.
Atticus Clothing, Macbeth Shoes. It was Tom DeLonge. It was John Humphrey, and they basically were like, "We'll give you, I don't know, like $1,000 a week." They gave us a van and a trailer. We had all our own gear. We had Zach Keenan, who's
Was he driving?
driver, and Matt Buchanan was making the movie. And at the time, he had a broken arm, so he was in a sling.
I remember
one
that.
can't, and there was like us 6: Matt, Zach, Brandon, Brendan, Micah, myself. And we basically were, at first we were told, do not talk to the other bands. You can talk to Blink because they're our homies. You can talk to them, but don't talk to Green Day. Do not mess with them. Do not. And we're like, okay, first show, we're like in Green Day's dressing room, drinking their booze.
They ended up becoming best friends with Green Day guys.
Yeah,
And this,
it was-
I love these stories. Listen to
So
this.
it was basically it was a reality show.
Yep.
Followed us, and we had great show. Like it was up to us to kind of figure out where to play. So we'd pull up to an arena, a stadium, some big shed place, and we would try to work. We would either play like in front of the bathrooms, we'd play in the parking lot, we would play. Sometimes they had a side stage, we'd play that. And, the arc of it was this band that got this opportunity, and we would blow it and be in trouble. And then we'd like somehow come back and do something great. And like, to me, and even though I wrote the movie and I'm in it, and I'm like, obviously so proud of it, and also disgusted by it and everything, embarrassed by it, the whole thing, proud, embarrassed, disgusted, the whole thing. But I feel like it's like one of the best rock documentaries, at least punk rock documentaries ever made, because it really shows like a dream realized.
Right.
By the end of the tour, we get to play the main stage.
This is the story. Tell them. So how many stops? 30s, 40,
I mean,
50?
it was 2 months. So I was working at TransWorld, and I told my boss, Joel Patterson, best dude, I told him, I'm like, I got this chance my band's going to go on this tour, so you're either going to let me go and come back to work, or I quit. And he's like, all right, good luck. You can come back to work. And so 2 months, we were starting off in the parking lot. We work our way like into the arena on the side stage. We miss shows. We would screw up, get in trouble, like I said. And by the end of it, we're like working our way up, and people start to kind of like expect us. Like they hear about it, like, oh, this other band is with this tour. We got to find them and play. And then obviously like Green Day and Blink and Jimmy Eat World, Saves the Day. Scrimmage Heroes was another band on there. So like these other bands, we were like all kind of like became this big family, and they would help us out. You know, like our guitars would break, and the Blink dudes would fix our guitars. Like we ran out of money, Green Day guys would give us booze. So by the end of it, and it was all organic. Like it wasn't scripted out at all. When I say I wrote it, I mean I wrote like the voiceovers and stuff like that, but unscripted. So at first, people did not know what was going on with these guys. We ingratiated ourselves to the rest of the bands. Everyone loved us. So we got in the family. We worked our way up to like the very last show, and they're like, all right.
Where was the final show?
I think it was Minneapolis.
In
a big arena in Minneapolis. And they said, you guys are going to be on the main stage.
Main stage with 20,000.
Last show. Main stage. And so we were like,
oh no.
We're ready.
Let's go.
We're ready. And we went up and we played it.
Did it feel like you would think as a person that's not in a band? You look out and it's a different, you're like, holy shit. Or were you guys just in it?
We were so tuned in, and we were like road worn, and we were probably drunk. So we didn't care. We were just like, sweet, main stage. Like exactly where we should be.
Did the Green Day and Blink guys get up there and watch? They did, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like they would come and watch on the side stage and stuff. But it was almost like at that point we're like, yeah, duh, we belong on the main stage.
Of course this is our stage, baby.
It wasn't like they were doing us a favor. We're like, yeah, this is where we belong.
That's so dope. And what happened with the tattoo?
I mean, God, there's so many
Didn't you
stories.
get a tattoo from the guy?
I got branded on that tour by Billy Joe, 3rd degree burn, branded.
He wanted it, him and Billy, sorry, what's his name?
Billy Joe.
Billy Joe, the singer of Green Day, loves these guys, fell in love with them. And he's like, they would get drunk and hang out and, I don't want to say I don't know what you guys are doing, but having fun.
Hugging.
And one night he's like, what did he brand you with?
So, you know, like there's a pool bridge, which is basically like you put it on the pool table and you can put the stick on it far away.
God,
it's like a crown. It looks like a crown. And so we were in Toronto, and for some reason, Cut You Up got the biggest backstage room. We had a pool table, balconies, like it was crazy. And we're like, we put a sign on the door. We're like, do not enter. So like the other bands would come in, they'd open the door. We're like, what do you guys want? Like, this is our room. And so we're raging. It was a raging party. And I remember they came up with this scheme, and they knew that I would do it. And so in the documentary, you see them come up with the idea, and they go, where's Chris? He'll do it. So they go out and they ask me, they're like, hey, we're going to brand you. And at first I'm like, no way. What are you talking about? And then like very quickly I was like, yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
And so they had like 10 people with lighters, and they lit this thing until it was glowing orange. And
where did they do it?
On my ass right here.
Tell me that's still a scar or something.
No, it's like,
oh, thank God.
Well, it's kind of sad that it's not, because kids to this day still ask me about this. So they hit me with it, and the second they did it, it was like this. My butt was like white. I mean, pristine.
Oh, just the best ass ever. Yeah.
Perfect shape.
Yeah,
that
perfect.
whole thing was beautiful.
Damn, I would have been horny doing that.
Did it, and it was like the second it touched the skin, it was like it just turned black, and like the skin curled up, and I was like, ah! And so I just started running, and I ran down to like there was a nurse on the tour.
Oh my God.
And everyone was it went from like really fun and funny to really scary.
Oh no.
And so I'm there, and I'm like, and the nurse is going, this is a 3rd degree burn. This is really bad. She's like, it's going to get infected. She's like, how are you traveling in a clean environment? I'm like, what?
A van with boys.
A van? And so I actually took really good care of it, because I'm like, I'm not leaving this tour.
How long into the tour was that?
2 months.
No, that was at the end then.
No, it was like in the middle.
So for 2 more months, you had your
She gave me ointment and bandages, and so like I was vigilant about cleaning it, and it's almost that's like one thing I kind of slightly regret, is that it didn't turn into, because you see college football players with like brands.
Yellowstone, they do the yellow.
Yeah, and I was like, hoping that it would turn out to be something cool like that, but it kind of like I took really good care of it and it healed up really nicely, and it's kind of just like a patch of freckles now.
Oh, nice.
But to this day I still get people that email me or find me on Instagram. They're like, dude, do you still have that brand? The branding was a big one.
Then you got a tattoo of a leather coat.
Mike and Matson and I, we had on that tour, we had these leather jackets that we thought were so cool. They were our lucky jackets, but it was really hot, so we couldn't always wear them. And so we had the idea of like, well, if we get them tattooed on our arm, then we'll always have them on. And it was late. I was like, I think we were in Connecticut, 2 a.m. We're at a bar, and somebody goes, oh, this guy owns a tattoo shop. I'm like, let's go. Went there. We got these tattoos. Don't really remember it. Woke up the next day in a hotel room. Mike and I were in the same bed, and we both woke up, and it was like there's just blood everywhere. Like we're covered in blood because we were drinking.
Oh yeah,
got these tattoos, and there's blood everywhere. We're like, we didn't know. Right when we woke up, we didn't know. But then we had these tattoos, and we were really stoked on the tattoo. Is it still there? It's still perfect.
But it did it live its
it
best
lived
life?
Yeah, it's
still there.
You know, it's still happening. It's still right here. I mean,
that's so funny. We'd asked to take your clothes off, but this is a PG-13.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. I mean, you could go on and on. Like that was.
Is there anywhere to watch that documentary?
It's on YouTube.
Okay, so Writing in Band with Boys is fucking amazing. If you guys have time to watch that,
it's on the internet.
It's on the internet.
Yeah, and that's another one that comes around every couple of years. Like, that's the crazy part about getting older in the social media world is now you're reminded of how old you are. You know, when our parents were growing older, it was like, oh, an over the hill birthday party. Like you have the balloons over the hill. And that's when they would think of it. But nowadays we're reminded every single day. It's like, oh, you know, just yesterday there's this blonde redhead, this band that I love. And it was like, I kind of thought of this as like a newer album. It's like, this album is 20 years old today. And I go, oh my God, I was a grown up when that came out.
Oh my God.
So that kind of stuff. But again, I know you don't feel it, but I don't feel old. I don't say that. I don't blame anything on like, oh, well, I'm just getting older, so I can't do it. I just don't buy into it.
Yeah.
I don't buy into, but when I turned 40, I was kind of like, oh my God, I'm dead.
You're
going to die.
I'm going to die.
But
let's hear what this girl has to say. She always has the best questions that come out of her mouth.
Yeah. I mean, I've got just like it's kind of more just for me personal question, but I've gotten the opportunity recently to do a little bit of like commentary and like interviewing at just local like surf contests.
Yeah.
And I love it. It's so much fun. If that was something that like somebody wanted to pursue, because I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that see what you do and other commentators and feel the same way, how would you recommend? Because I mean, obviously we can't all work at an epic surf magazine and get in that way.
Well, you know, I always kind of think of Joe Turpel's story when I get this question, and I actually answered this question in an interview for The Inertia like 2 hours ago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Basically, how Joe got his start was he was, and I could never speak for Joe, but he's told me this story and it's really smart. So basically, he was surfing in college NSSA events, and he would like, if he lost early, he would go and volunteer and say, I will be the beach announcer, or let me be involved, however. And so by volunteering at these smaller regional events, like you just said, I mean, there's a surf contest somewhere near you, anywhere you are, or it's a little skate event or whatever. And it's hard to find people that want to sit there all day and call heats and announce and do all that. So by volunteering at these events, and you're not expecting to get paid for a while, volunteer at NSSA's, volunteer at local regional events, just to get your reps and practice, because it does take practice, does take time to get comfortable with it. But there's always somewhere where you can kind of volunteer to get involved. And that's kind of like the live announcing thing. But in terms of just like figuring out if you can do it or are good at it, I mean, it's as simple as putting on YouTube and putting on the last WSL event and just hitting mute and literally just try it and talk what you're seeing and see it, see if you're coherent and see if you can kind of keep up and do it. Yeah, I guess it's and now it's like with our phones and with vlogs and YouTube, it's so much easier to just do it, because you could, like whether it's reaction videos of, reacting to a surf video or whatever, there's just like, there's so many ways that you can just, you don't have to ask permission. You don't have to apply for the job. You just do it. And I've trained, younger kids that wanted to become announcers. I've done a little bit of training, and I'm just like, all you need is your phone, and you sit there and you talk into it. And there's a difference between like being a straight up vlogger of like, what's up, fam? And like, that is its own skill in itself. That takes so much motivation and determination and drive and like a different type of personality to like do that. But there's also more of the journalistic kind of news side of where like, I used to do this thing for WSL called Surf Breaks.
I remember that.
Yeah, and I was literally like on my phone. They'd give me a script and like, here's the 5 topics. And that was such a rad training regime to just like, it's like going to the gym. Yeah. Every day you woke up, you got the script on email, and you're like, all right, be in my front yard. Here's what happened and blah, blah, blah. And like, they don't do that show anymore, but I did it every single day for a year or 2 or something. And that made me, and this is recent, and that made me so much better, because you're just like, you've got to be on it. And, like this with podcast and everything, like there's, if you want to do it, there's no excuse not to do it, because it's so easy now.
Yeah.
The hard part is like, okay, well, yeah, like you don't get paid that much doing all the jobs that I do. So I'm by no means like financially stable.
No, but I love that advice. It's like the best way to get good at a sport, especially surfing, is watching it and getting through watching it. The first time you watch it, you're like, I suck so bad, I'll never watch it again. Then you watch it again and get a little better and better and better. For you, if you want to do the commentating, like you said, it's such a good advice that film it, you do it, and then listen back with your friends and be like, oh shit, I'm horrible, or oh God, that's really good. Or there's, that you will never be more revealed of what you want to do in your life than to film or record what you're trying to get good at.
Yeah,
That's
and out of your comfort and out of your comfort zone too, because it's one thing like, I mean, I've done every type of hosting, man on the street,
everything,
every
dude.
type. And, it's like getting out of your comfort zone and sitting there. Let's say there's a surf contest. The Salento Surf Film Festival contest is at Seaside, right? Well, there's no reason why you couldn't reach out to the organizers and say, hey, I want to come do some interviews on the beach, and like, even if it's just on your phone or whatever, there's, like I said, it's like there's a difference between making a reel and actually trying to make a piece of content that you're like, you've researched it, you're down there, you're trying to tell a story or, get your point of view across. So I'm not.
It's attainable.
We're actually full. We don't need any more announcers.
Yeah, I know. Annie's trying to step on.
So
Annie's stepping on your toes.
We're full. There's no jobs left.
I know. There's no room for pretty girls.
Let me do this for 10 more years, and then you guys can have it. But no, it's actually closed.
Take that advice back. You know what?
Closed.
The best way to do it is to not do it.
Yeah,
I love that.
That's my thing.
No, but I did see that, Annie. You doing the announcing, because she films these young kids. She just made her first surf movie, like a Taylor Steele premiere. She had in her hometown. A bunch of people came out.
Thanks for the invite. Jeez.
I know, right?
Hey, Benji didn't even come, so
I didn't.
Well,
come.
I wasn't even invited.
I have some stuff in my life going on, but I was so proud of you for that, and I saw how all the kids reacted like we did to Taylor Steele's movies, and then I saw you commentating at the contest that you film every weekend for free, and she puts in so much work.
You're already doing all these things.
Yeah.
And she was the other day I saw you announcing, and I was like, that's so cool. So this kind of fun.
And that's the cool thing is like it is so niche, and we're constantly looking for people to do this. It's like you have the levels, local event, QS, like California QS, for example, all these events, Pismo and all there. It's like,
there's so many events you could get a part of. That could be,
and it is, it's, I think the kind of classic, make a reel, make not a reel on Instagram, like a reel of your work. Here's what I do. and getting it to people, like give it to me and I'll give it to the WSL people, or I'll give it to Do Tour. Like I have leveraged and used, I don't say used, I've leveraged and called in so many favors for people, for gigs that I've wanted, for recommendations that I've wanted. And I've also done the reverse and tried to get other people jobs, tried my best to like help other people because I've been so helped, like with all this stuff. So I try to do anything I can to like pay people back, or, it's hard sometimes just there's so much going on, but try to get people who want to be in the surf industry or the action sports industry, try to get them involved. And, I think a lot of people want to do it. They want to be in, they want to go to the events, they want to go to the contests, but it looks really fun from the outside. But when you're in there and you're like, your alarm goes off at 4:30 and you're at the contest and you're like, trying,
And everybody has this is the thing about your job that always freaks me out. Because I'll be honest, I do it too. Is the commentator is your least favorite person or your favorite person? It's such a critique that everyone has. Oh, I hate that announcer.
Well, you're the outward-facing product, right? You're the first line
of criticism
in front of the audience. So it's like the waves are bad. Well, it's
up to you, motherfuckers.
Fault.
You better be as good as Kelly Slater on the wave when the waves are flat.
Yeah,
and that's terrifying because everyone has something to say about commentating. And then the surf part comes second. It's like the commentating is almost more judged than with the surfing and the contest.
Well, the best part about it is, so like some people, some people get really bummed on when, online trolls or
oh my God, I can
Instagram,
only imagine,
Twitter,
dude.
all that stuff. People get bummed, and I've been there too. But for me, it's like I think it's funny.
Yeah.
And I think when they stop talking is when I'm going to have the problem. Like, whoa, hold on a second. I got to say something stupid. But the best part about it, right, is you're announcing an event from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m, 12 hours straight.
6 days
Most
in
of the
a row.
stuff, you're just like, you're flowing. You say one stupid thing. You make a mistake. One mistake, 6 hours in. And somebody's like, you said this.
Right.
And I go, oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
Thank you so much, because you're paying close attention. You're watching all day. And you're thinking about what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm like, I got you, dude.
I love that.
got
Hey,
you,
that perspective is the only way out of it.
Because
Because you're not going to fucking say everything that people want to hear all the
Right.
time. That's why I've been asked to do the commentating so many times in my life. The only one that made sense was Stab High at the wave pool. And they asked me, but I had some other thing
said
to do.
no.
I said no,
And then
but
they
I
didn't ask you
wanted to
again,
do
did
that
they?
one because I was like, Mason Ho surfing a wave pool? Pfft, this is a no-brainer
Perfect.
for me. But I do respect the fact that your position as a commentator is it's really the most criticized position in the surf world.
I
is.
just did an interview with this guy Evan for the Inertia about this same thing literally 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it's such a rad job, and it's so like no one's ever come up to me in person and said,
Bad thing.
hey, you said this stupid thing.
Right.
Oh, that one event. Or I hate your voice. You have a high, squeaky voice. It's like when you're in person, when you're at the event, it's like, dude, walk around with Strider, walk around with Joe, walk around with Kaipo. It's like people love these guys.
Right.
Rosie, AJ. It's like they love them, and they're stars at these events.
Yeah.
And when for me, when people give me crap online, I mean, it's pretty obvious that I feed into it. I put myself on Beach Grit. I put myself in, the YouTube comment section. Like, I'm down for it. I love it. I think it's the best. But at the same time, if I see somebody online talking crap about Joe Turpel, talking crap about Mitchell Salazar, talking crap about Strider, whoever, I'm like,
What the fuck?
I get, pissed. I don't go in like that because that's their thing. But I'm just like, you don't understand how good these guys and
hard
girls
the job
are
is.
at this job and how hard they work at it. And like the fact that anybody, and trust me, Joe Turpel has 1,000,000 times more fans than he has haters. You see his haters in comment sections and on the internet. And it's like, he knows every heat like in the history of surfing. He knows every stat, every win loss. It's like the dude is an encyclopedia. And when anybody gives him crap, I just think to myself, I'm like, you have no idea what a gift to surfing Joe is, what a gift Strider is in the water.
Right.
You know, it's like Strider, for example, Strider Wasilewski is in a wetsuit in the water for like 9 hours.
Yeah. In J Bay where there's sharks.
In J Bay,
biting his
Pipeline,
dick off.
Sunset. I see him come in and he's like burnt and just like I surf for like 45 minutes and I'm done. Get this wetsuit off me. This dude's out there like war reporting. Yeah. Getting hit by waves.
No, that always blows my mind when he's like out there reporting and he'll be in the middle of saying, he's like, oh, hang on, big set, I gotta go duck dive this thing. Yeah. And then gets straight back on after him.
Yeah.
He is a unit.
Yeah, they're like special forces, and obviously it's different. We're talking about surfing here, but they're so good at it, and that's why I just think it's funny because, like for example, I was just telling this story to the Inertia interviewer. I loved doing the Vulcan Pipe Pro was a perfect example. You know, like dudes were sitting there like I'm going out there pulling in, like you're talking about it, like let me. Trust me, like I can do it. And they get in the booth and they put the headset on and like, it immediately sinks in like, oh, this job's hard too.
When they talk in your ear. So I did the lower Hurley Pro when Bud Light did the expression session and they brought me into the booth one of my first times. And I always would, you know, I got to be completely honest. It's so fun to talk about this because everyone's haters on commentators. They always, no matter what you say, if you're a pro surfer, you don't like it. You're like, I don't like the way that guy, like Ross got away probably with the most love because, you know, he came from,
he's Ross Williams.
He's Ross Williams, but he actually articulated well. He didn't say cat with the rocking chair tail and the rocking chair, like all the corny things. And I love Potter and I love everybody, but it seems like everyone attached themselves to corny little taglines and shit. And so as a pro surfer, you're always like, I don't like it. But it's just like you said, I got in the booth thinking, look, dude, I'm one of the funniest people in the world. I'm confident. I know everything.
Nail this.
And I know all about surfing and own rights in the water. I can't wait to talk about this. As soon as I put the earphones on, Kemp goes, and I love Kemp. He goes, Benji, I want you to, and I go, what do you, and I, on the cast, I'm like, who's talking in my ear? Yeah. I'm like, who is that? Am I talking to God?
That's what I would love to see.
And people don't realize that when they're on the mic and they're trying to articulate to what's going on, there's an asshole in their ear going, hey, by the way, you look shitty in those pants. You're like, what? Who said that? What? And then it fucked with me. And I can only imagine it takes a while for that person in your ear when you watch commentating NBA finals, all that stuff. They have someone talking to them the whole time.
Oh, the whole time.
The whole time.
Yeah.
And that shit is what people don't realize is, imagine if you were trying to talk to your girlfriend about being in love with her and someone's in your ear saying, hey, John's out the back is catching a wave together. And you're like, okay, sorry, I love you. John's out. And it's like, there's so much of that. I do that
at like career days. I do career day at junior high and high school and stuff. And I go, okay, here's what it's like. Sit down in this chair and describe your friend on a wave. And they start talking. And then I go, okay, you need to wrap it up in 5 seconds. There's a commercial coming. And like,
I love it.
It really is. We are, and I can speak for all the, at least the play-by-play guys, that we are really great multitaskers because you're not the big events, whether it's surf, skate, or snow. You're always going to be, the main thing is like talk to the screen. That's why nowadays when you go to a WSL event or do tour or whatever, it's like you're not facing the ocean. You're facing that way.
Right.
And there's a backdrop and you're only looking at the screens because in the past, you'd be going, so-and-so's on a wave and you're like, oh, and then that was amazing. And then, oh crap, here comes a set. And it's like the camera is on a bird.
Right.
Or a crowd. And, like, oh God, here comes it. Oh my God, it's going to get him. And they're like, you have to watch the screen.
Right.
Talk what's on the screen. So you're talking about what's on the screen in your earpiece or headset. The producer's going, hey, in 10 seconds, we're going to a commercial or we're going to cut to this piece about Owen Wright. We're going to cut to this piece about blah, blah, blah. And so you're in mid-sentence. Okay, so, Kelly Slater, he needed a 6.5 and asking this person. They're talking, and a lot of times it's like, as they're talking, then you get the direction. Cut them off. We're going to commercial. And so you have to quickly figure out like how to do that. So there's the multitasking there, screen, headset, but then you also have, you know, either your phone or paper with stats, and you're like, well, you know, Richard Dogmarsh won this contest in 1978. And so there's like all these elements of multitasking happening, and you have to keep the story going. For me, it's like I always challenge myself, like, do not repeat yourself. Come up with some funny, fun, like musical reference. Use obscure words out of this thesaurus, like that word. I just like to challenge myself because it's fun. I like to try to have fun with it, and you know, I think that like all the big kind of commentators or announcers, they have their style and their like own catchphrases and stuff, which makes it rad. It's like the most famous announcers in all of sports, like, you can hang a star on that one, baby. Like, there's all these, like, you have your little catchphrases, and you know that works in surfing and skating too. It's just,
I think this is a great thing for a lot of us to hear, and when I say us, I mean for real us. To hear your perspective. No, I mean us as like a pro surfer, a fan, a filmer, and all these things, because we watch the events. We love surfing. We love watching the events. And the commentating part, you only have one view of it. If there's a mistake, what the fuck? Why didn't you know that maneuver? And why are you talking about this? And why is all that? You never think about the 6 hours you did good.
Why don't they say how crappy the waves are? Because
maybe that's not the right thing.
Does that like, if for me personally, it's like, of course, I'm Mr. Toxic Positivity. I love it all because I want to surf crappy waves better and all that. But it's like, if I'm up there and I'm watching and it's like the U.S. Open, it's Thursday, it's 3 p.m, it is windy, dog shit, and it's like, you know, not an exciting group of surfers in the water or whatever. If I'm up there and I'm like, well, this is gonna suck. The waves suck. These guys can't surf. It's why, like, don't watch. So the challenge is, all right, look, the waves aren't great, but these 4 surfers in the water are really good in waves like this. So if we all watch, maybe we can learn something. And this is going to be a pretty rad challenge for these 4 surfers to try to get a 5.
You're making entertainment,
you know,
out
it's like,
out of lemons.
Instead of going, you know, we're notorious for saying, well, the conditions are tricky, challenging conditions. You know, it's not great out there because, again, it's like,
they all have the same elements, the same waves.
But it's like you have to lean into a little bit of positivity, and there's always something good that can happen in a heat. There's always, you know, I one of my favorite heats ever was myself and Rosie Hodge. It was at the U.S. Open. It was dead flat. Stephanie Gilmore's in the heat, and she's standing waist deep in the water trying to like jump into waves stand up and like do a turn. And we were
hardest heat of your life. We
started talking, I said something like, well, you know, like, I said one thing about like a cat. I go, well, like the cat's meow or whatever. And then Rosie looks at me and she's like, well, you know, this is like the kitten who got the milk or something. I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, you know, Stephanie Gilmore, she's got 9 lives. And so we talked about cat puns for 20 minutes.
That's good.
Because nobody was riding waves.
Yeah.
Who knows who even was watching, but I remember at the end, the director or the boss who's comes in, he goes, okay, guys, like, that was cute. That was fun. Now let's get back to work. But it was just like, that was one of the most memorable heats ever because Rosie and I were just like,
you were in the same position as those surfers in the water.
Oh, we're
like, dude, this isn't surfing.
It was absurd.
It was absurd.
But it was like, you know what? This is entertainment. Yeah. Let's have some fun.
And you have to finish the job that's in front of you.
Yeah.
And it's like, fuck, she gets a 1, she makes the heat. She did her job.
You got to remind, you
killed 30 minutes of airtime.
You remind yourself quick. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm getting paid right now to watch and talk about surfing. Yeah, exactly. Like, this is the best.
And that's why, Cote, you've gotten to where you're at. And the coolest part about you as a human, everyone loves you. Everyone loves Cote. But the reason why we love you is because you're consistently doing stuff that other people have trouble doing, which is, you know, the work and the work is something you've always been good at. Like I went to the surf. I don't even know what that thing's called down there where they surf in the campgrounds the other day.
Camp Shred.
Camp Shred. Okay. Shout out to that. And I've always heard about it, but now I live here and I went down there. And of course you're there running the shit, doing the music, doing that. Everything I go to, you're doing it. And you're running comedy shows, you're running DJ night, and you're always doing the work. And for people out there that want to hate on commentating or hate on Cote in any way or hate on everything, it's like they're scared of the work, you know, and the work is what gives you the ability to live your dream. And your dream has been fulfilled. I mean, you're a great dad. You're in your late 40s. You've done it all. You play music. We won't even say, we'll just say you're over 40. And you didn't die at 40, which is nice. And you wake up every day doing what you love. And pro surfers or pro skaters or all these people, they get to live their dream for a little bit of time, but not as long as your dream's been going. You've been doing this thing since you're a little kid, and it keeps reinventing yourself, which is it's very honorable, and your kids get to see it, and it's fun because your face is around everything that we love. I always love that.
It is kind of like trying to lead by example.
It is,
and I'm fortunate that I even got to start doing it and.
You're always saying humble shit and stuff. I want you to get cocky. I want you to be like, "That's right. I fucking own this shit, dog."
I got 3 free boards from Dark Arts the other day because I rip and I put the board. They're loners.
They all are.
They're not getting it back. No, trust me. I got
You're always.
I got a box of clothes to my house the other day. And I opened it up and I'm like, "Oh, this is so rad." I'm like, I'm still getting free clothes.
But you thought of it as being a pro surfer still, right? You're like, this is because of that Japan trip.
Thinks about me enough to fill out a form, and somebody grabbed it and put it in the box, and they sent it to me, and they're like, there you go. And then I put it on my Instagram, and they say, thank you. And then I'm like, do you want more? Somebody still thinks that I'm relevant enough to give me
stuff.
I got I got these shoes for free.
Those Gravis?
These are Opus shoes right here.
He wants another pair, guys. Let's
No,
go.
trust me. You're right. I do live a dream existence.
But you created it.
There are struggles.
It's not like it was given to you.
Yeah, I'm not rich. I'm all right. I'm upright. I'm healthy. And these are all the things that keep me healthy mentally, physically, spiritually. Surfing, skating, playing music. Snowboarding is pain in the ass. Let's be honest. That's a hard one. I love it, but
I know. I just saw you went on a snowboard trip.
Too.
No, you went on. Where'd you just go?
I went to Detour.
Detour doesn't fail.
No, well, I did go to Japan. I went to Hokkaido.
Oh, that's what it was. You went
to
Japan.
Was like, for me, that was the best thing, and that everyone told me that it's going to ruin snowboarding anywhere else.
The
for
powder
you.
there, woof.
And so I did. I went to Detour, and I was at Copper Mountain, which is an amazing mountain, and the snow was great. And I took 2 runs, and I'm like,
I'm good.
St. Japan. But no, it's like all this stuff keeps you young. And what is that famous thing? It's like you didn't quit skating because you got old. You got old because you quit skating. Oof. Like you could do that with anything, right? You didn't get old because you quit playing music. Or wait, I said it wrong.
No.
You didn't quit playing music because you got old. You got old because you quit playing music.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't expect people to go out there and like try to kickflip down 9 stairs, but it's like, go to the park and roll around. It's like, it's not scary, go surf. You don't have to go and like I did this morning and try to like battle the Groms at Seaside. Maybe get a clip for your Instagram so you can put it on there and keep getting free clothes. Okay. But I don't know, just try to keep doing this stuff because this stuff will keep you young.
No.
It'll keep you feeling good. It'll keep you happy.
Yeah.
Because we have friends that would give anything to go and ride one wave or to go do an ollie off a curb.
So true.
Like, there's so many people out there that like can't do it for whatever reason. And the fact that we can, we should.
I love it.
Yeah. And we've been sitting here now for 2 hours. We should probably go surf or skate.
But honestly, Cote, I knew when you came in here, we were going to have an easy chat. But I realize why we've been friends for so long. It's because I do respect what you do for a living. and I always have. You've always been in my corner through media and TransWorld and all the other stuff, and we were working together, and that was work. But I'm telling you right now, as a father of those two beautiful boys, you've done a really good job. I'm super proud of you, and I love seeing how happy you are and healthy.
That's the best compliment ever.
And dude, you're a way better skateboarder than you were 20 years ago. That always trips me out. Your clips are getting better.
I think I'm better at skating and surfing now than I ever have been.
You are.
Is it the board? What is it?
I think if Ezekiel was still around, you'd be going to Japan soon. You would write a note to Roman. Sorry, I'm going to Japan. But now
I like that now. I'm like, oh, dude, sorry, I got to go to Japan.
But hey, I love you. Thank you for coming on Let's Poddy. I hope you are going to go surf.
Part one, right? We're going to do this 4 more
We're going to do this after you win your second world title.
Okay. I'm going back on the queue.
Mm-hmm. But I'm going to come on the Poddy.
The Monday M.A.S.?
Monday M.A.S.
Yeah.
But it'll be on Tuesday.
Let's promote some stuff. Let's self-promote. That's what I do best. Self-promote my own stuff. Monday M.A.S. Yeah, listen to it. Follow us at Monday M.A.S. on Instagram. Sunbender, that's the new jams. We've been playing a ton of shows. We've got 3 new songs coming out really soon.
Wait, your band's called Sunbender?
Sunbender.
I didn't know that.
Bro.
It's not Cut You Up anymore?
We were the official...
Same Cut You Up band or different members?
It's myself, Brandon, Frank Dixon. He was in Yovi, so it's all kind of the same family.
Cool.
It sounds a little bit like Cut You Up. It's got some psychedelic elements to it. It's really probably some of the best music that I've ever played or been a part of.
Dope.
We were like the official band of Dew Tour Snow 2024.
Awesome.
Shout out Kemp for putting us on. We have songs on Spotify now. SUNBEND. Wait, SUNBENDR. No E at the end. We're on Spotify, Apple Music, all that stuff. Right. Check that out. And we have shows all the time. What else? Yeah. Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I don't know if you knew that.
I actually follow you.
Yeah,
I'm like one of those people with their arms
Cote
out.
on Instagram.
Yeah.
Buy my posters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Posters? Okay.
M.A.S.S Magazine.
Yes.
Yeah. Hustles on hustles, but the good thing is they're all fun, good hustles to do.
Well, hey, we love you. Thank you so much for taking the time. And Annie, as always, have fun editing.
Do you get to hit the button?
I get to hit all the buttons.
Don't edit any of those compliments I gave Benji out, please.
It's
those
right when he's all backside airs. It just
those.
goes and then goes into him again.
Compliments.
Nah, no compliments there. Hey, thank you, Cote. I've always loved you, and I love you even more now, buddy. Okay. Peace out, you guys. Woo.